Well, good morning, everybody. If you're curious as to the way I kind of go through my own website every morning, one of the first things I always check is I just slide right down here as I go through all the images, but I like to go to the 7-day total precip. I've just got 5 major models all laid out, and I can get just a quick snapshot in my head of maybe what might be happening. It kind of informs the way I'm going to take things. And this morning as I did this, I was a bit surprised in this region right here in each of the maps. And my first thought when I saw this was, oh my gosh, we've now got a better signal that this tropical system we've been thinking about might be going much faster, coming up out of the, somewhere out of the Yucatan Strait and getting into the Gulf of Mexico. That was my first thought. So I quickly went over to the National Hurricane Center and I saw that they updated it now to an 80% chance of tropical development. I walked over to weathernerds.com, or weathernerds.org, a great website, and played out the forecast tracks of these tropical systems from the European ensemble, which again, this is starting somewhere here north and east of Jamaica. Of course, that would be between Cuba and the island of Hispaniola. And then apparently, the new model runs came in last night, are shoving whatever this is, right through the Yucatan Strait, maybe over toward Florida. So I'm like, gosh, but that timing didn't make sense. Because again, if I come back to the site, these are all 7-day maps. And it appeared that this was going to be coming into next week. It's at the end of the model run, not at the beginning. And so I went and looked a little bit further, and it wasn't really the tropical system that was being forecast, because that looks like this right now on satellite. This morning as the sun rises, it's not that swirl. That's not what we're talking about. It's these thunderstorms right over in this area. But what this is actually some precipitation that's going to come on the tail end of a front. We need to talk about that and see how much moisture is going to be getting into that area and how it could possibly spread farther toward the east and maybe the northeast with time. I'm hopeful that we could get some moisture into parts of the northeast here very soon. So that was the thought process when I woke up, and let's kind of walk through where that took me as we go forward. First thing is, I was looking again at the satellite data yesterday, just kind of focused in. Here's Colorado, so here's the snow that just fell. Some places, several inches of snow. I just wondered how much kind of the warmer temperatures yesterday kind of helped erode that snow, but it wasn't that warm, and so we didn't see much of the erosion overall on that snowpack. But I did get some information about the wind system that came through California, so I couldn't quite see it on satellite, but San Francisco Bay is here, so this would be like the San Joaquin Valley just as the sun was setting. And the reason why I went looking here was because I got a message about a windstorm that came through this area that kicked up a large dust storm. And so I'm going to take it to my Twitter feed, and it's going to show you this because he sent it to me. Andy did. I appreciate this, but just have a look at the dust storm that was kicked up here in the San Joaquin Valley. Pretty amazing just to see this coming through here. So there were some strong winds. And again, it just kept this thought process going about how dry it has been in this area to get such a large dust storm rolling across this area. So Andy, thank you for sending this to me. But I wanted to show you your stats. So yesterday we looked at what happened since the beginning of November, right? And that is one of the big reasons why this whole area has gone over, well, let me draw that again, why this whole area is showing wetter than average conditions on this map. This map goes back to August 31st and goes through yesterday. Now, this whole region up until the last 10 days was bone dry, completely dry. But that's how much the statistics have changed when you're doing this long, this is all of September, all of October, and the first 11 days of November. Now, in this, we, of course, include Milton. We've got Helene in here. Well, that was a little misdrawn, but whatever. We had Helene in here as well. But I want to show you, in California, we're looking at a top 3, driest late summer, early fall time periods. We've yet to see the flow get into this region and really begin to revive moisture. So you either have to get subtropical flow that comes from this direction or lows that come along the coast and they sit and curl up here as cutoff lows before they leave. That's the scenario that needs to come into place for the Southwest to get some moisture. This map also highlights just how deep the drought is in the Northeast, and it has expanded back into parts of the Ohio Valley as well. And it is also there to show you that despite the heavier rains to start the month of November, the longer standing statistic here in the upper Mississippi Valley, the upper Missouri Valley, this part of the Red River Valley, the Western Corn Belt, is what we should call it here, it's still incredibly dry over that time period. And to be honest with you, it is the drought that's in this area that's got me concerned about 2025. If I'm wrong on winter, which we talked about yesterday, and we do not get good snows in this area, if we bring in cold air soon and that gets knocked down and the ground freezes, I'm talking about in December, then we won't have a chance to recover moisture in this area for a while. So we need to see a pretty active pattern setting up. Now, we know there is one right now, but is it going to be delivering the moisture to that area? Well, that's why I start every day by looking at these maps. And if you notice, look down here at the WPC. I'm not seeing a whole lot in that area to be talking about. So let's kind of get into this and see where things are going to head as we walk through the forecast. We do have systems in place. I mean, I told you the North Pacific, the jets shifted north, it's retracted, but it's sending lows. Here's the next one. We already had one that made it over the Northwest yesterday. We can see that already today we're going to be getting some stronger winds out of the south right up the western side of the plains and the central plains. We're going to get some downslope flow off of the mountains, which means we're going to get temperatures here, in the 50s, maybe 60s in parts of Colorado, just as an example, coming off the mountain. I think Denver's high today will probably be close to 57, 58, 59 degrees or something like that. So we'll watch to see how much that melts the snow to the south of that area if it can. But if we look at our all hazards weather map early this morning, we do have a couple of areas of dense fog, but also some wind issues here. Montana, parts of South Dakota. You can also see everywhere here in the west, including Washington, Oregon, California, Southern California. We're looking at strong winds. Winter weather advisories out for Utah. And then we're going to watch to see how these systems progress east if we can get moisture over into the extremely dry parts of the Pacific Northwest, which again, I just am amazed at some of the stats here surrounding, or Northeast, for parts of the Northeast here. All right, I'm going to go straight to the high-res NAM model early this morning. Let's just kind of play this forward to see what we're expecting. I think the model was pretty well initialized. Through midday today, here's some snow. There's an external boundary coming in the northwest. High pressure dominates here right now over the Great Lakes, Ontario, and Quebec. As we play into tonight, this is getting into early Wednesday morning. About midday Wednesday, the latest update is there's a bit more moisture kind of pulled in with this leading wave that's coming through here. The wave is kind of losing its position and strength. It's not a deep wave, but it's making a good pull on some moisture. So we could see up the Mississippi River some decent moisture coming in, also through parts of Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, possibly getting some decent chances of rain tomorrow. But our next big system's already into the west, and this one's going to be one that brings some snow into southern Cascades, northern parts of California, and then here into into parts of northern Idaho. And so what we're going to do is we'll watch this one curl up as this one moves over the mountains. By Thursday, early in the morning, curls up over Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio. And what I like about this is it's trying to draw some of that moisture farther to the east, pushing it into the high pressure cell that was there. We just need to see how much further it's going to go, or if a subsequent low, one coming behind it, can get moisture into parts of the northeast right now. So you kind of saw the quick progression of that system rolling forward. This is what the wave looks like on Thursday morning. So it's not very deep, right? You'd need a low like this one or this one to get all the way into the northeast in order to make that happen. So let's pick this up here Thursday morning, playing on out through Friday. Look at the next wave coming through here on Saturday. And so, in fact, let me refresh this. Sorry, it was kind of bouncing around there. There we go. There's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Now, what I've noticed in the forecast from the artificial intelligence, which to me has been doing the best job at finding the pattern and picking up on it, certainly got the highest skill scores, is that once we get into early next week, I want to watch this right down here. There's a short wave to the south of a much larger wave that's over the northwest, and these often get kicked out, and there looks to be decent moisture return here. And we're going to have to watch Monday and Tuesday for that system to possibly kick off some strong to severe storms in the southern plains toward the mid-south, maybe the Midwest. At that point, the AIFS is bringing whatever this next system could be into the Gulf of Mexico, but it's going to get quickly shoved east. And the reason for that is the deeper trough that we expect next Tuesday, the 19th, to be diving into the Four Corner States. Now, this is one that we've got to watch. Again, this is the 19th, 20th, 21st. Because that low has the look of a system that could tap into enough cold air on the backside for some snow. And I got to go out there and see if it's really in the models, if it's a possibility, but it could be a quick hitter for some snow ahead of, what are we, the 20th, 21st, 22nd, that time frame. But remember what I mentioned a moment ago. If you want to be getting moisture into the east, this is what you need. And that's a deep low forming here over the Ohio Valley and eastern Great Lakes. And as we talked about yesterday, that's the kind of system that we had not yet seen get into that region for a while. So with all of that, just want to let you know, if I keep playing this, notice that the Gulf of Alaska keeps sending. and it's not done. And that's why over the next 15 days, we've seen the newest model run doing what I thought it would do yesterday, which is to amplify the Pacific Ridge, let systems roll over the top of this. We have this kind of bit of a blocked setup here over the North Atlantic. There's our deep trough over Europe. What changed in this forecast is the depth of these troughs coming into the west. And that's what's giving us a bit more of an active pattern for the next 2 weeks. So let's go probability-wise first. This is the chance in the next 10 days of grabbing an inch. Of course, it's very high along coastal Washington, Oregon, Northern California, excuse me, and then along the Northern Rockies here. But with each of these next systems, especially that one coming out on the 19th and 20th, we're really beginning to increase the chances of getting quite a bit of heavy rain in this area. Now, remember, this is not all from what I thought at the beginning, which was from the tropical system. It's not. This is actually from where each of the frontal boundaries drags through the moisture-laden air that's coming off the Gulf of Mexico here. So we have over the next 10 days, from Mississippi to Alabama, parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, a 90% chance of getting an inch. If we step it up, we should have got a new model run. Oh, good. If we step it up, there's about a 50% chance of getting 2 inches in this area. Now, of course, along the coastal parts of the Northwest, the probabilities are high even for 4 inches, but that's all topography driven. If we find those dry areas once again, it's the Canadian Prairie, it's parts of the western and northern plains, it's the Southwest, which again is not getting the flow we talked about at the beginning. We do see that the Northeast keeps its drier signal, but I'm watching that system. Remember, it's out here past day 10 to get into the Northeast and finally deliver some much needed moisture. Southern Texas and New Mexico continues to be dry, and we can see the same thing for parts of the Southeast over Florida, lower probabilities of getting much moisture in place. So I'm going to flip you over to the European model. Again, the new European model simulations I'm running here do not color code for precipitation type. I got to work on that algorithm to make sure that it's functioning properly. But what we're going to see is there's the first low through Wednesday and Thursday. So see, here's the first pull of moisture in this area. That low tries to spread some of its moisture into the mid-Atlantic, here into the Northeast. But our attention is going to go into the west because the next big system comes out on Saturday the 16th and goes right toward southern Manitoba. More flow coming into the Northwest. And remember, we're watching the 19th, 20th, 21st. So here we go. Deep trough dives in. Look at the pull of moisture gets off the Pacific Ocean first. So decent precip next Monday coming into the Northwest, into Northern California. But remember, it's that wave that's out ahead of it that we're watching. And that one gets curled up, and it's going to be a wind maker. It's going to possibly be a snowmaker on its backside. And this is the 18th into the 19th and into the 20th. We're watching this low. The GFS had it yesterday. The European model was quicker with its progression. And the European model out here on November 20th is attempting to bring that tropical system into play as it goes through the Yucatan Strait there. So that's the one I'm watching most carefully. Now, over the next 7 days, this is what we're expecting in terms of snow. Most of it is in the Great Basin, the Rockies. It's going to be in the Sierra Nevada and the Cascades. And you can see some of these snowfall totals are going to be quite high, getting well over a foot. Some places up here 2 to 3 feet in the Northern Cascades and the Northern Rockies. That's the European model solution. This is the GFS. Now remember, this is before we get the big low that comes out down here from the Four Corner States, really into Mexico as well. And right now, the GFS, as that one comes out, is trying to put down snow here between the 19th and the 21st. Now you cannot, please don't do this. I'm just telling you that there's a chance for a system to put down snow. You can't watch my video and say Snodgrass said we're going to get 18 inches of snow. Okay, that's not going to be the case. Now, if I had a trip planned up here, I can almost guarantee it, but I don't. I'm not going to be in the northern plains during that time frame. But is it in the European? Okay, this is taking out the same time frame. There's something there, and I just want to keep an eye on this because we're not yet settled on what it could be. But maybe let's do this real quick. Let's come back over here. Flip this over to winter. Let's go the probability of. Let's go for something big here. Probability of 6 inches. And you start to see that the model is attempting to increase those probabilities here in the plains for a storm system that could deliver some decent snow. Now, the National Weather Service and the Climate Prediction Center are also talking about it. On the 19th through the 21st, they've now increased this to a slight risk. So that's all it is. We can't make more out of it than that. We just need to understand that there is a deep low that gets all the way down into Mexico, New Mexico, and Arizona, and then rolls up with cold air on its backside. So it's that time of year that we have to start talking about the risk of snow in this area. So I will keep an eye on it. What I do notice is this. Here's that low right there. This is in the European model ensemble. It's in place. And what I'm watching is in the ensemble, can we get these troughs to slide over to the east? And some of the forecast models are doing that. And that's why in the week 2, we start to see the risk of staying drier in the northeast dropping off. See that? Even the CPC is giving us that kind of green light on getting better chances of precip in here. Now, does this break the drought in the northeast? I don't think it does. It's not the right setup for that, but it's a push of moisture that could come in. And it'll come in at the expense of the western United States taking a break from the moisture. As you can see here in all 4 maps, the western U.S. is a bit drier, especially the Pacific Northwest, as that trough migrates farther to the east. That's going to affect our temperatures too. Your next 7 days of frost risk are shown here. If we watch the high temperatures, let's reload this real quick. We end up getting high temperatures that do something like this. Here's today's highs, getting to tomorrow on Wednesday. Thursday, major cool down here across the east, but that's pretty short-lived because by the time we get into the weekend, all the warmer air begins to build up. So this is about the point when the troughs are entering to take shape down here for the 19th through the 21st to eject. And that setup of cold west, warm east is exactly what they need to get the flow to go right in between the two. So big cool down in the west starting almost right now, but continuing all the way through the next 7 days. And if you look at day 5 through 10, you can see it. And then take a look at this. That's the day 10 through 15 outlook. Warm up in Alaska. Warm up here, Canadian archipelago. Cold air in the United States. So this would be, of course, day 10 through 15, we're almost leading up to Thanksgiving here at this point. Cold week is what it's shaping up to be across a lot of the United States during that time frame. And, of course, the CPC's got an eye on as well. 19th through the 25th, they're bringing that colder air in, suggesting the risk of those cold hazardous temperatures. Okay, where I want to finish is just looking at that same outlook so we can keep an idea on the trend of this. No change at all in the new European model update of any significance for the time period of the 20th of November to the 20th of December. This is all still expected to be wetter than average, which was in the model runs all weekend long and early yesterday. And I just can't make sense of the dryness we have for the Northwest and coming into parts of California. And the reason I can't make sense of it is that would suggest that the Pacific high is really, really close. And if it's really close, it's hard to get this area so wet. You got to keep it a bit farther offshore. And so it doesn't make physical sense to me, but I think the models are struggling with a couple of things. Like usually when the MJO is at high amplitude like it was, man, the ECMWF sub-seasonal model just hammers it. It gets it right. We can see the pattern unfolding, but the ECMWF has now forecast the MJO to kind of collapse toward null space in phase 1-2. And that's not a strong signal to help kind of push the model in a certain direction. You know what I'm saying? Like we've lost, the sequence of constructive events in the atmosphere that give us better, longer range prediction. One of the other ones is, what's going on with La Nina. So this La Nina here remains quite weak. Now, we're watching the cold water to possibly push off the west coast and develop off the coast of the Baja. That would be that PDO signal. But this La Nina has to contribute to that. It helps. It kind of actually is a coupled system, the La Nina and the negative PDO. And just so you're aware of why I'm not calling this a strong La Nina, remember when we went into the triple dip La Nina of 20, 21, and 22? That's what things look like on November 12th, 2020. Now that's a La Nina, okay? So I just want to be clear here why I'm not so set on this one being strong. Plus, some of the lead indicators, like the Southern Oscillation Index, which needs to be way above a value of 7 to be considered that the trade winds are behaving like a strong La Nina. It's not. It's near 0. So we're not here where we were during our last episode of La Nina. And that's not only going to influence North American weather going forward and increase uncertainty, but it's also going to influence South America. Now, we looked yesterday. We know that they caught up in a big way on planting. We do note that it's been a bit drier farther to the south. Here, Paraguay, southern parts of Mato Grosso do Sul, Paraná. But the next 10 days looks relatively wet. You compare it to average and you get this. There's a little bit of a dry hole right here. And I'm just thinking about that because, parts of this over the last 10 to 15 days have gone drier in southern Brazil. But there's no shortage of moisture farther to the north. So we just have to watch this and be aware of it because we have seen some pretty dry conditions showing up from Parana down to Rio Grande do Sul. So I want to watch that carefully, given that we've been drier in this area, although Rio Grande do Sul is expected to pick up quite a bit of rainfall right on top of one of its driest spots, which is here. Again, I don't see South America showing up as a major production wildcard at this point, but the only thing I'm keeping an eye on is these subseasonal forecasts. Do we just stay drier here and here, getting out there toward the end of December? That's a possibility. But at this point, you can't look at this map and say that there's going to be just widespread problems in South America for crop production. There's no signs like we had a year ago of major drought settling in. So we just need to watch the weather down there and see how things continue to progress. But that's the latest update, and so we can kind of keep an eye on these trends in South America. Okay, have a good one. We'll talk tomorrow morning. Thanks.